All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of RoundballRadio, where we talk about basketball, pop culture, and everything else in between. We're going to be doing our best to appear to you to be well-informed, but you might find us kind of veering more often into passionate and irrational territory. But hey, that's sports, that's life, and that's going to be Roundball Radio for you. So I'm your host today. I'm JT Cunningham, and I am joined by my two co-hosts, Dylan Gorman and Sam Hadler. What's up, guys?
What's going on, JT? I'm excited to be back talking some basketball. It's been a while since we last got on the pod. I don't think we had a show, or we haven't had a show since the start of the regular season. So I'm excited to kind of discuss what's going on around the league, and I think our last episode was a season preview, so we can maybe touch on some of the early season predictions that we had. But otherwise, yeah, happy to be in.
JT, I heard there's a big change in somebody's life since last time we were on the podcast.
Yeah,
is that true?
That might be true. So I'd probably be to blame for our 3-week hiatus here so far. But having a kid, I guess, will do that to you. So first couple weeks have been a ride, but we're finding time for the NBA again, so that's good news.
Well, congratulations, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you very much. And there's our cat
JT,
walking by.
Are you a little sleep deprived right now?
No, actually, the first few days, we were getting probably 3 or 4 hours. Especially the hospital was brutal because we stayed 2 nights in the hospital, and then the nurses are coming in every hour too. So it's you'd get the baby to sleep, and then it would be 45 minutes later a nurse would come in and do some sort of check, enter some sort of information into their computer and whatnot, and it was just constant interruptions. But actually the last 2 nights, and I'm going back to work tomorrow for the first time, and the last 2 nights I think we've been averaging 7-8 hours of sleep a night. So it's probably better than I was getting before.
That's 3 hours less than Danielle usually gets, though.
Well, that's true. Yeah, she's struggling. I'm doing freaking fantastic.
Cute baby, I might add too.
Oh, adorable.
JT, I think we might have lost your audio, but as far as so if she wasn't cute, I obviously I wouldn't say that, but I wouldn't say that she is cute. So by just saying that she's cute, super cute baby.
Well, there's a lot of babies where I'm I don't know, but this baby is legitimately cute.
Well, everybody's told us that so far, and I'm not sure if everyone's lying or if she's legitimately cute, but I'm just gonna go with the second one.
No, that's what I'm saying. If they're saying she's cute, she's got to be cute. Because if she wasn't cute, they just wouldn't say anything.
Well, that's true. I
mean,
guess.
they wouldn't say she's not cute. They just
say she's a baby.
Hush, hush.
Yeah, Sam would be like, oh, nice, JT.
Yeah, it's a good kid.
Yeah, he didn't seem super taken aback when he saw her for the first time, so I guess that was a good sign.
No, she was so cute. She was sleeping, and then I touched her feet, and then she moved a little bit. It was awesome.
Well, that's about the extent of her activity at this point. So, but all right. Enough baby talk for you. We'll get into the basketball topics too a little bit here. We've got a trifecta of topics today, including our early season reactions. We've got some deeper analysis on the early Timberwolves season, our hometown Wolves. And then we're going to pose some open questions to the rest of the NBA. But before we do that, we're going to get started with a new segment we're going to trial run here called All Fired Up. And this is only our second episode, so I guess it couldn't be too old anyway. But this is brand new to us, and really what we're going to do is we're going to survey the three of us, our three hosts here, myself included, and we're just going to talk, each of us, about one thing that kind of got us going over the past couple of weeks or since our last episode. And really the intent is to kind of get us all lubed up for the rest of the conversation. So with that being said, and this can be something random, doesn't have to be basketball related, just something that you happened to have happen in your life over the past couple of weeks that really got you revved up. So, Dylan, let's start with you. What got you fired up in the last couple of weeks?
I am all fired up for Anthony Edwards.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I have been wanting to say this for weeks now. I wanted to, take my time with it, but I want to go to the nearest building and shout off the rooftops how I love Anthony Edwards. This guy from the start, from when I saw the interviews before the season, to his own YouTube channel, to his podcast with Marty Gellner, This kid just oozes swag. He's funny. He's charismatic. I'm not even going to talk about the basketball. Like, I've just been waiting for a player like this for so long in the Timberwolves organization. You know, he's fun, energetic, joyful, and we've been missing that on our team for years now. And I think, you know, even outside basketball, which has been very good, this guy has been a joy in my life. I've laughed at him multiple times, and I'm just ecstatic over him. Just ecstatic. You know, we've had players like Wiggins who, you know, doesn't have much of a personality. Cat, who's kind of diplomatic.
Yep.
This guy is finally charismatic, and we got somebody in Minnesota that's fun, and I'm fired up about it.
Yeah, it's I like that you mentioned Cat because that's he's kind of the anti-Cat in a way, and I love Cat, but he is every bit a politician as he could be.
Yep.
And Anthony Edwards seems like he's just firing from the hip at like every single question that he's asked, and it's refreshing, honestly. So.
Did you guys see that Cardi B video that he had with his friends?
Film breakdown?
I love, yes. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And then also with Marnie Gellner, when she asked him what sports he could play, and he listed off like tennis, swimming, cooking, volleyball, and how he dominated all those. And I love that swag. And he doesn't take himself too seriously, where it's more like bravado compared to cockiness. And I'm just loving every minute of it.
Yeah, it was one of the first Zoom press conferences too, where he hops on and immediately goes, "Damn, I look good."
Yeah.
And then Marty goes, "You do look good." And he goes, "Yeah, for sure, appreciate it." The dude's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, man, he's just like naturally funny, and I'm just glad that we have somebody like that's just fun. And he's been fun on the court, fun off the court. I think he's gonna be just a good person for our organization.
Yeah, I agree. Sam, you got a take on Anthony Edwards, or you want to start on what got you all fired up?
Yeah, but I think we're gonna talk about that later. So
Sure. Yeah.
no, I might hold off though after Dylan's enthusiasm. He might come at me hard for what I was about to say about it. So no, I mean, I honestly, this is a bad week to start this topic for me because I'm like not fired up over anything.
Oh, come on.
But I guess if I had to pick, I'd say the NFL. The playoffs just started, so I watched football all day yesterday. I'm gonna watch football all day today. I lost a lot of money yesterday. I'll probably lose a lot of money today, and yeah, that's pretty much what's got me fired up. Other than that, I've been pretty low key. So,
And I don't.
how about
so,
you, JT?
Yeah. So, being all fired up, that can be one of two ways, which as you'll see in my topic here. But would losing a bunch of money or winning a bunch of money get you more fired up one way or another?
It's a good question. I would probably say winning money would get me fired up. When I lose money, I just feel like depressed for 8 hours, and then I go to bed and I wake up and try to win it back. So I don't know. I'm hoping to. That's the thing. Living in Colorado, the sports betting being legal, I've gone down a
Slippery
a road
slope
there where I probably shouldn't be going down. But no, I'm excited about the games today, and obviously, I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, if I don't have money on the game, like I'm not too interested in it. It's really bad because even the teams that I root for, like, I almost have to have money on the game for me to like actually root for the teams that I like. So it's getting pretty bad. So maybe I have to tone it down a bit, but I keep saying that and I do it anyways.
Hey, Sam, have you heard of that number 1-800 I have a problem?
Yeah, it every time I log into FanDuel or DraftKings, it's right on the bottom there, and I think about it, but then I just keep going.
Types the numbers in, sits there for a couple minutes, and then just closes it out and enters another bet. What more do you want?
Maybe one of these days I'll probably call that number, but I think it's gonna have to hit like rock bottom before that. So I don't know. We'll see.
I still got cash. That's all that matters, right?
Well, one of the only kind of radio shows I listen to, and I don't know if I'd call it religiously at this point, but is the Power Trip morning show here in the Twin Cities. And Corey Cove's got a saying on there that life is better with money on the line, and I think you've just fully adopted that philosophy. So, congratulations.
Yeah, I gotta like figure out how to wean off of it because, I mean, like I said, I can't even root for the teams that I enjoy anymore unless I got money on them. And there's been occasions where I like bet against the Broncos, and And I'm like actually rooting for them to like lose in some situations. Obviously, if they were like in the playoff hunt or race or in the playoffs, I wouldn't do that. But they're out of it, so I didn't feel as bad. But yeah, I definitely have adopted that approach, JT.
Well, I'm rooting for you, Sam.
Appreciate that.
All right. Yeah. So for my topic, I'm gonna tell you guys a little story. So basically, like for the last like 4 years, ever since we moved like the last time, and this is, I don't know if this is unhealthy or not, but I have literally bought a box of zesty cheddar ranch Cheez-It Grooves at least once every 2 weeks. And I go through that box, I get a new one, and I'm probably bought about 100 boxes of these things for the last few years. I don't know how. I don't know how they've done it, but like it was just like this snack that like would hit the spot like every single time. And now what they've done is they have, and I know you guys can't see my video, but they have updated the zesty cheddar ranch Cheez-It Grooves with a new look and a bolder flavor. And it's a MFing disaster. So the last ones, the only way you could describe their taste was zesty cheddar ranch Cheez-Its. That was the only thing they tasted like. And now what they've done, and it's clear as day, they're using the white cheddar Cheez-Its and they've put taco seasoning on them. And it's the most depressing thing that's happened to me in my personal life in quite some time. So literally the last time I saw them at Target, because we saw the box pop up and we bought one and we're like, okay, like what's this deal? They suck. And then I saw the old ones at Target. I literally bought 5 boxes. And I've been trying to ration them, but at some point I'm going to run out and it's going to be a sad day. So,
dude, I feel you there. Like, I remember when Burger King, they said like the best chicken nuggets, and then they all of a sudden changed them. And they used to like, they went from like these little like narrow ones like this to like exactly like McDonald's, and they just ruined them. Like, if I wanted to get McDonald's nugs, I'd get McDonald's nugs. Yeah, you know, like. I feel you, man. That's terrible. I feel bad for you. It's a tough day.
I appreciate it.
I don't have any comment on that.
Well, that's because you've never tried them.
It's been a while, but I probably had them back in like high school.
They weren't around in high school, trust me.
Oh, all right, so, college.
No, they weren't around in college either. You're a liar, and I'm calling you on it. But, all right. We've got to move on before I like completely emotionally and mentally unravel here. But we're going to head now into our basketball topics for the day. And we're going to start off with our early season reactions here, especially because our last show, as we mentioned earlier, was our season preview. And what we're going to talk about, we're going to get into are the teams that have been pleasant surprises and those that have been surprisingly disappointing. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the individual players that have either really shown up or been complete no-shows. Sam, who stood out to you so far one way or another?
Yeah, so I have one, and I'll get to why I chose this individual player, but it's DeMar DeRozan. And the reason I picked him, and well, first off, he's kind of changed his game this year where he's more willing to take three-pointers within the rhythm of the offense. And so I think he's only averaging like 2.2 threes a game, so nothing crazy. But he's hitting at over 40% clip, which DeMar's never been a three-point shooter, especially to that level. And I think this year, being on an expiring deal, it just raises his value that much more. So I think it's interesting because if the Spurs decide to get rid of him at the deadline, he makes for an intriguing piece that could really shape how the playoffs ultimately go. One team, and we'll talk about our contenders next, but one team that I think would be a really interesting fit would be Boston, because they have the trade exception from the Gordon Hayward deal, so they wouldn't have to give up any of their star players in order to acquire him. And again, he's on an expiring deal, so there's no team that's going to be willing to take a shot on him unless they got a commitment from DeMar that they wouldn't have to give up much, essentially. So if the Celtics, as just like one team that comes to mind, can land a guy like DeMar, you put him next to Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, and Jason Tatum, that makes for like a really interesting offensive unit. And then DeMar is definitely flawed as a defender, but within that system in Boston, I think you can hide his flaws; he'll be fine. Brad Stevens is a good coach. I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, just his ability this year. You can now play him with 5. So with Aldridge on the court and DeMar, they've been a terrible defensive team because both of them are very below average defenders. But now that DeMar's a more willing 3-point shooter and he's kind of firing within the flow of the offense, it's more catch and shoot than anything. He's not really creating his own shot. But you can play him now with guys like Jacob Pertl, or however you say his first name. Is it Jacob?
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, so I think where previously you could not play DeMar with a defensive 5 or anything along those lines because you needed shooters around him. Otherwise, it just kind of limited his game. But just the fact that he's kind of like growing his game makes, and then the fact that he's on an expiring deal makes for like a really interesting how it could work at the deadline. So I've always liked DeMar. I think, Dylan, you probably knew that. I've said that before.
Yeah.
Like, he's always been a favorite of mine, not because I think he's like a great player, because he was more of like a mid-range scorer than anything. But the fact that he's kind of like growing his game now at age 31, I don't know if it was Pop who got to him or what, but
it was interesting you brought up his contract situation. Do you think he's incentivized by being in that position to maybe make himself a little bit more marketable to his next suitor?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think that probably was part of it, just because he knew he was on the expiring deal and he knows the way the game's going. And his value before this year, he didn't really have much. Like, no one wanted to bring him in if he was going to be like a 2-point scorer and you had to play all 3-point shooters around him. Now that he's willing to take those catch and shoot threes, he's a much more valuable asset to add to the team. And then on top of that, like, it'll be interesting to see what the Spurs do, because they could ultimately choose to keep DeMar as like their veteran centerpiece, if you will, and they got a lot of young guys that they can continue developing around him, where he's kind of the leader of the team, and maybe they let Aldridge walk during the offseason because I believe he's on the final year of his deal as well. So they don't really have to trade him, and that might give them a little leverage at the deadline. But I think, JT, to your point, that definitely played into what DeMar growing his game.
Yeah, because I had him on my fantasy team for the last 3 years, and that was sort of a point of frustration for me, and that's the reason why I passed him on the draft like 3 or 4 times this year. Was he doesn't do much on the offensive end statistically, or defensive end statistically, and yeah, he doesn't shoot threes. And then all of a sudden that kind of came out of nowhere, and especially this late in his career to kind of have that development, it was sort of like Brook Lopez, like all of a sudden he just decided to start jacking him.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys remember though. Like his last season in Toronto, he was actually shooting 3-pointers. He's actually shooting like 4 or 5 a game, and then it went back. He went backwards once he went to the San Antonio, because for some reason they zagged while the rest of the league zigged, and like they started taking almost exclusively in mid range, and their offense wasn't actually that bad, but it definitely clogged up the spacing. But this year, like, the Spurs are going back to a more 5-out system. Like, Aldridge is shooting 3-pointers for the first time in years. DeJounte Murray, DeMar. I mean, if you saw the game last night, they're looking pretty good, and that's the only reason I would maybe say that. I don't know if they will trade him, just because Pop is so old, and then their team's actually doing pretty well this year. And DeMar just killed us, man. That was not a great game.
And then, to your point, Dylan, the last couple of years he's been averaging 0.5 and 0.6 threes a game, and then he's up to 2.6 this year. So it's definitely a huge jump for him. And he's also, like I said, shooting right. He's at 39%, I guess, so like right below the 40% clip, but still really good. And then another thing too, he's being much more of a playmaker this year. He's way more efficient. He's actually averaging, I believe it was like 5.1 or 5.3 assists per turnover, which is just incredibly efficient. So that's expanding his game. The fact that he's willing to take the threes it's causing defenders to come up and guard him, and then he's kind of getting into the lane and he's making the right decisions when he gets in there. So I think it just more than anything, it would be really interesting if Boston could land him, just because they have that trade exception, so they could take on the salary and not give up any of their guys. I don't know any other fits that would be appropriate for any contenders, but the Celtics are like one of the borderline teams on my contenders. So if they were able to add DeMar, that just gives them another element that probably gives them a boost for me.
Sure. Dylan, who stood out to you so far?
For me, it's been Steph Curry. It's been a year since he's played, and then obviously he's been hurt. But getting him back on the court in this capacity, it's been so much fun. Like, I forgot how obviously how good he is, but how much fun it is when he's cooking. You know, you go on Twitter when he's having a good game, and the whole feed is Steph Curry, because he's just a fun, joyful player, and he's really carried the team. The Warriors, if you watch them so far, their role players have not played well. Wiggins looks like Wiggins. Yeah, he's been just the same as Minnesota. Oubre, I got stats. He's averaging 10 points, 5 rebounds, 0.5 assists on 33% shooting, 13% three-pointers, and 75 free throws. So he's the $70 million man, with taxes included, has not panned out for them. And then also I think Kerr has made the system too complicated for their team. So all those things are going wrong, but they still have Steph Curry, so they're above 500. And it's between him and Draymond coming back. It's just been fun to have them back in my life, and the Warriors have been good. And I just looked at his efficiency. He's averaging, it's like his 2016 MVP year again. He's averaging 35 and 7 on 46, 40, 95 splits, and the way he opens up the floor and the way he plays has just been really fun to watch for me. And it's not anything different from what he's done in the past, but it's just back after a year gone. And to me, it's good. It's good having him back.
It's a bummer. It's a bummer that Clay's out, because
I know.
I mean, if you add Clay, man, it sucks. I wish he was healthy, because then we kind of get like the vintage Warriors back.
Yeah, and you can definitely see like the, they're a pace and space and move the ball around team. And without those guys that are used to the system and have the high IQ, it gets clogged up and gummed up really quick. So not having those guys that have been in the system with the high IQs, that's why there's some of those early season blowouts for the Warriors. So once you get Draymond back, just one guy. Just imagine if Clay was back too. I mean, I would think they'd be a contender. But either way, it's fun to even have Curry and Draymond playing. So I'm excited about that.
Sam, how much fun do you personally have once Curry gets cooking?
So there's this narrative that I don't like him. Like,
Sam, no, you don't.
No.
Like
Let me explain. I don't. Okay, so the reason I went hard on him was because he was basically going up against LeBron in all the finals, and everyone knows I'm the biggest LeBron fan out there. And it was just like his attitude, like how he celebrated, that just like rubbed me the wrong way, basically. Like when he like took that crap on the floor, and then there was a few other times with like the shimmy, like when he did the shimmy like right in Chris Paul's face. I was rooting obviously for Houston in that series too, so that kind of stuff just rubbed me the wrong way. But dude, I don't hate Curry. I really don't. I think the league's definitely better when he plays, and he's not someone I'm like gonna root for over like LeBron or some of the other guys that I really like. But I mean, when Curry does well, it doesn't bother me. I think it's better for the league, and I honestly hope we get another like LeBron Curry conference finals or playoff matchup where I wish Clay was back, where like everyone's at full strength, just because those were good times. So I don't know.
I feel like
I hate this narrative that I don't like Curry.
I'm not saying you dislike him. I just think it's funny because I think that's an unpopular opinion that Steph is like unbearably cocky. because I agree with Dylan where it's like this joy that he plays with. It's just fun. Like he's just out there having fun, and it's like it is confidence that's veering into cockiness territory. But to me, it's just fun to watch.
Right. You just said it, like veering into cockiness territory. Well, like yeah, if you're like watching the game and you don't have any like stake in either side, like, but when you're like rooting for LeBron and Curry's doing that kind of stuff, like it's gonna cross over into cocky. That's how you're gonna interpret it.
So you just took it personally because of your LeBron allegiance.
Exactly. That's
okay,
pretty much it. Like that's bottom line. So like when Curry's doing that against like Charlotte on a Tuesday night, I love it. But when he's doing it in the finals against LeBron or in the conference finals against Chris Paul and James Harden, yeah, I'm gonna take it a little bit personally. And then I can't really. He is extremely valuable. He's probably, I mean, he is the most valuable now with Durant gone to that team. But there's no question that he's come up short at the end of game. I hate saying this, but because like it's like the last shot. Like you play great the whole game, and then you come up big in or small in the final minutes, and everyone like drags on you. But he's missed, like in that Toronto series, he was not very good, and he missed a lot of like late game clutch shots. And then he had some really bad games in like big moments where he was out. Like there's a lot of people who are saying he's better than LeBron or he's like on the same level as LeBron, just because the Warriors were beating the Cavs and things like that. And he had games in the finals where he just shot terrible, like 6 of 20. He had like 17 points, and no one said anything. Like if LeBron were to do that, everyone would just, oh my gosh, this guy's the worst player. He's a, faux king. Like, so it's like those things that kind of like bother me. He shouldn't be on the same level as LeBron, but he was like compared. He was like looked at the same way. So that's another part of the reason why I was like a little hard on. But like, again, I don't really hate him. So we gotta dismiss that narrative.
I wish you would stick to your bit and just. There's been a lot of times where like, oh, I can't stand him. He's cocky. I don't like him. Blah blah. So I think you should stick to your bit.
Yeah, you didn't exactly double down.
If we get in another scenario where he's going up against LeBron in like the playoffs, that bit will be back. I promise.
All right. Well, we got to move on. The only player I was going to touch on, or I was going to highlight, Dylan already touched on too, and that was Kelly Oubre Jr. Just because I could not believe the horrifically cold start he got off to. Especially, I kind of expected him to come in and be that second or third option in Golden State's offense, which, obviously has been prolific over the last couple of years. And for him to start out shooting like 1 for 27 from 3, it doesn't even seem like mathematically possible.
And did you watch him at all? Like, the other thing too, he's taking bad shots. Yeah. So it wasn't just that he was missing, but he was taking bad shots. He just looks like awful. I mean, he's probably been the worst player in the league this first 2 weeks. I mean, he's not really playing great defense. He's getting rebounds. That's the only thing he's doing. So I wouldn't be surprised if he lost a lot of minutes. But then again, it is a new team. But he has been horrible.
Yeah, hopefully it's just a matter of acclimating to the new system, and he'll figure it out. But we'll see. So now moving on to the teams that have sort of outperformed their expectations early on. And I think the candidates likely leading that group after the first few weeks have been the Sixers at 7-3, leading the East. And surprisingly, the Suns at 7-3, leading the West. Sam, has anyone, or Dylan, has any one of those teams stood out to you in particular, or is there another team even beyond those two that have really outperformed expectations early on?
Yeah, well, for Phoenix would probably be the top of mind because they actually look like a legit contender. If you look at their offense and defense efficiency, they're 12th in offense, 3rd in defense. And if you would have said that before the season, you might have thought the opposite. But they're really defending on all 3 levels. They have the point of attack in Chris Paul. They have the wing defenders, Bridges, Jay Crowder. They also have the anchor, Ayton, in the back line. So they look like a legit defense, and that's after not having much of an offseason, no preseason. So that's really encouraging to me. And beyond that, if they can improve on their 12th ranked offense, which if you look before the season, you have a elite playmaker in Chris Paul. You have one of the best scorers in Devin Booker, and you have Ayton, who is a good post/role big man. You would have thought maybe the opposite, where they would have a better offense. So I really think that they could be a fringe contender where you could look at them and see them in the Western Conference Finals potentially. So I actually kind of believe in their team. I lean yes into the contenders and lean yes into them being their record holding up throughout the year. So I'm really enthused by them. Beyond that, the other team I mentioned was Indiana, with the new coach. I cannot pronounce his name as he's a foreign guy, but their offense looks more effective. They're passing the ball more. They have balanced scoring. They have 3 guys that are averaging over 20 points a game. There's really no weakness in their starting 5, and Sabonis seems to have taken the leap from all-star to potential like all-NBA guy. And they have a lot of guys that are not just can play offense or defense, but they can play both. So I'm not sure if I would consider them a contender, but I think their record is real, and I think they've improved a lot. So that's the other team that I was looking at, and where I could see them potentially making a run in the playoffs if they can stay healthy and COVID-free throughout the year.
Sam, who stood out to you?
Yeah, just that's a good point, Dylan, because when we were talking about like our implied team win totals at the beginning of the year in the first podcast, one thing we didn't mention was COVID and how that could affect everything. Obviously, you can't predict that, but throughout the year, there's going to be star players that we already seen with KD miss time due to COVID. So I've seen actually a lot of like sports books and stuff go to winning percentage versus like win totals, just because you don't really the uncertainty with around COVID. So for me, the surprising team, it's not really surprising for me because actually it's kind of where I expected them to be, but it would be the Sixers. I know a lot of people were maybe not quite as high on them. Where did you have them, Dylan? I think you had them at like 4 or 5 in your Eastern Conference.
Yeah. No, actually, I'm 6.
6. Oh yeah, so exactly. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people kind of were in the same boat where like they were the middle of the road team. As far as playoffs goes, obviously everyone had them as a playoff team, but for me, like they definitely sacrificed talent this offseason for fit, and I think this is a perfect example how sometimes fit is more important than talent. They brought in 2 40% three-point shooters in Green and Curry and inserted them into the starting lineup. It's given Simmons and Embiid just more room to operate and just made them a more efficient offense. Also, getting rid of Josh Richardson, he's actually played really poorly this year in Dallas as well. I think he's still kind of clinging on to the one big year he had like 2 or 3 years ago.
Miami.
But yeah, in Miami. But yeah, I think they're just like a better fit, and they definitely sacrificed some talent, but they're more efficient now. I think Doc's done a really nice job. Simmons and Embiid have just more room to operate. They have 3-point guys that they sit out on the perimeter and open up the space for the team. So, I mean, I don't see them slowing down. And I like the Sixers this year. I think they're like a borderline contender for me. I have like 5 contenders, and they're sitting at like the 6th spot, but they're definitely creeping up on my list. So I'm gonna continue to watch them, and I really am pleasantly surprised, but not too surprised that they're sitting at the 1 seed right now. And then the other team that I just wanted to touch on was Brooklyn. They're sitting at 5-5, but a lot of that was without Kyrie and KD. And well, they're out of the playoffs right now, so they shouldn't be like a huge surprise that they're doing like really well because they're not in the playoffs. The fact that KD and Kyrie have been sitting and they've still been like a competent team, and I mean it just speaks to like the bench that they have and the depth that they have. And so when those guys will be healthy for the playoffs most likely, and they'll be back in the rotation. And I think what this has shown us is that they're just a deep team, and despite being out of the playoffs right now, they've only grown up my list as well, because I think they're even more contenders than I thought them at the beginning of the year, even though I picked them to go to the finals, so it's not like a huge jump up. But I'm just more confident in their bench and the guys that they have surrounding KD and Kyrie. Caris LeVert has been tremendous when inserted into the starting lineup. Like, he has a really high usage rate, but he's making plays, he's scoring points, he's getting guys involved. Joe Harris had a big night a couple nights ago. He's I think a great role player, 3-and-D guy. And Jared Allen's obviously been off the charts. DeAndre Jordan coming off the bench has been fine. They're just deep in a lot of different positions, and they're a team that I'm pretty confident in saying that they're top of the East, even sitting at 5-5, right outside the 8 seed.
Brooklyn will be an interesting case this year, I think, because we're going to have. You mentioned, how they've held up with KD and Kyrie out, and I think I'm just guessing we'll end up seeing them sit, a lot of those back-to-backs later on too. I just feel like they're going to be a team that they might not even wind up with a top 3 seed, but in the end, like those two guys, they're not going to care. And especially,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and especially with kind of where we're at with like fans in the arenas and stuff. Like, has home court advantage ever mattered less? I mean, unless things really take a drastic turn before the playoffs start for the NBA, it could be sort of that thing where they're just sort of flying under the radar, keeping those guys healthy, and then they they move to strike come postseason time.
And then I'm not the biggest Kyrie fan, but he's been extremely efficient when out there this year. Like a couple of nights ago, he shot like 7 of 10 from the field in the first quarter, or was he? He might have even been perfect. I can't remember, but it was some ridiculous number. But he's just been incredible when he's out there, and we know what KD is, so feeling pretty confident in Brooklyn.
Yeah, so my only 2 issues with both those teams. One, I looked at kind of the advanced stats for Philly. They're 18th in offense right now. So they still have issues with with Embiid and Simmons and creating up space to create an efficient offense. And beyond that, they have a lot of guys that either play offense or defense. So I think that'll probably hurt them once it comes playoff time. But at regular season, they're going to be one of the top teams. And then with the Nets, I just feel that, if you look at the NBA, usually the top 1 or 2 seeds wins a championship. Obviously, that's mostly because they're the best teams, obviously. But it's also getting chemistry between the players. It's winning games. It's being able to just create a good team, right? And if you can't do that, which I'm not sure if they will during regular season, they might have an up and down playoff ride, like teams like
Clippers
last year. And then beyond that, if they have like a 4 or 5 seed, they're having a tougher road to the finals. So although I wouldn't put it as my top concern, I think it's concerning. And you want that top seed, and you want to have the easiest path as possible to the finals. It reduces injury chance. You have a better chance against worse teams, and then home court will matter. I mean, I'm not sure how much it'll matter, but it will matter. So I think it's still concerning that they're if they're not at the top of the East, which they could be. Yeah. It's early. So.
And speaking to the chemistry issues real quick, I think that's definitely a valid point, and probably my main cause of concern for Brooklyn. I mean, Kyrie took the day off the other day, and he only told his teammates. He didn't even tell the coach, and that's kind of been like a pattern of behavior even before the season when they hired Steve Nash, when KD and Kyrie were on the podcast, and they basically said, we don't really need a head coach. Like, we can coach ourselves. So the fact that he wouldn't even let the head coach know that he's not going to play is, speaks to the chemistry concerns. But I think I'm still going to take them to come out of the East.
Yeah,
as of right now.
I will too. And I think, but they were 3-0, and they're playing Charlotte, and they should beat those guys like 9 out of 100 times. And
come on, Charlotte's been all right this year.
They've been all right. You're right, but the Nets are just better, and they had their full team, and they took the night off, and that's what I'm just concerned about, because that shows up in the playoffs, and it also again, having that top seed matters, and so I'm slightly concerned by them.
Sure. Yep. All right. Well, let's move on to the teams that we think have underperformed early on here. And we've got a couple of notable teams there, too. I think one in the West being the Nuggets, who are sitting just outside the playoff picture right now at 4-5. But I think 2 of those wins have come against our own lowly Timberwolves without Cat. And then at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, too, are the Raptors. So, Dylan, do either of those teams concern you more than the other, or is there another team entirely that has kind of stood out?
The Raptors are definitely more concerning to me. Siakam has carried over his bubble performance to the regular season. He's been inefficient on offense. He hasn't been able to affect the game on defense as efficiently. If you saw his bubble performance and this year so far compared to last year when he had his breakout All-Star season, one of the biggest differences is his three-point percentage went from 35 to 30%, and that is huge for his game. Is he's kind of a straight line driver, so if people are playing off of him, he has a difficult time, especially playing off his spin move. So that's concerning. And then the other big concern I have is their bigs. They replaced Gasol and Ibaka with Baines and Len, and they've been basically a zero for the Toronto. And Gasol and Ibaka, as individual players are not, top 100 guys maybe, but the connective tissue and the ability to be versatile between the two of them was really important for their team. So I think they've really missed that. And beyond that, they were really expecting a jump from Anunoby, and he has not made the jump. He's been fine, but he's been the same player. So they're concerning. And Denver has also been pretty concerning to me, but exactly what I kind of thought would happen did happen. Murray has not carried over his play from the bubble, and then their defense is 25th in the league. They don't have very many good defenders on their team, so if they want to be a real contender, they're going to have to either figure out a different system or play their system more effectively or get in that trade market for Harden. So I'm concerned about both teams, to be honest.
All right. Yeah. So would you be concerned about, so you mentioned Siakam, he kind of showed a ton of potential during their run to the NBA championship a couple of years ago. Do you think his development is sort of plateauing to a degree?
Yeah, and I think the league has definitely figured out what he wants to do. Because he went from being a really fringe role player to the second guy on championship team to the man. And once you're the man, you have the whole defense focused on you, and you have a whole game plan around him. And that's just a more difficult task. And he hasn't evolved enough to be more the number one guy and be more efficient. So it has plateaued, and I think he'll figure it out. I think he's better than the player he's been the last couple weeks of this season in the bubble, but it's cause for concern for sure.
Sam, who's been disappointing to you so far?
So I think the one team that jumps out to me, Dylan hit on, was Toronto. That's really the only team I'd be actually concerned about at this point. I'm really not concerned about any other team in the league. It's too early for me to be concerned. Like 9 games in for a lot of these teams. I know you guys mentioned the Nuggets. I'm not worried about them. They'll figure it out. They'll be a playoff team. They'll move up to the 4-3 seed, somewhere in that area. They'll figure it out. If like in 2 weeks they're sitting in the same boat, then I'm going to start being a little more concerned. But Jokic is playing at the MVP level, and things will shape up for them. So I'm not concerned with them. Some of the other teams I'm looking down in the standings, Memphis, they've obviously been without Ja. So, I mean, that's where you'd expect them to be in that scenario. Rockets have missed some of their guys. I expect them to probably be end of the conference playoff team. So I'm not really concerned with any team other than the Raptors right now. We'll have to kind of see how things shake out the next couple of weeks. And then maybe I would start being a little more concerned over teams like Denver, over teams maybe like Houston, even though Houston doesn't have the loftiest of expectations anyways. So other than that, I don't really have any huge concerns.
Hey Sam, you mentioned Richardson on Dallas. Do you think do you think Dallas has any cause for concern?
No, I really don't. I think he's definitely underperformed this year. I'm not high on Richardson at all, but they've been without Porzingis this whole season. Let's get him back into the lineup and just kind of wait till how things go once he's back in there. If they continue to struggle, then I would be a little more concerned. But again, 9 games in, no Porzingis, I'm not concerned at all. They're still in the playoffs right now, and when he comes back, they'll be better and they'll climb up. So I'm not concerned at all.
Well, I think too, like Carlisle usually figures out rotations, and right now, Dwight Powell hasn't looked the same coming back from Achilles injury.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they obviously have some new players integrate. I think Carlisle will eventually figure it out, and I think Luka will get back in better shape. I mean, he just admitted the other day that he came into the season out of shape. I think he was expecting more of a lead time up to the season. So I mostly agree with you, especially their offense is 19th right now. Like last year, they had the best offense of all time. I mean, they're gonna get better in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. No concern for me.
Sounds good. Yeah. So speaking of disappointing teams, let's launch into our deeper dive on the Timberwolves.
Good segue, JT.
Yeah, exactly. So our hometown Wolves, they started out 2-0, and then Cat got hurt late in that game to Utah, obviously. And then since then, they've dropped 7 straight. Most recently, a overtime loss with Cat back in the lineup to the Spurs last night. But we're going to hit on a couple of the topics of the team that have been kind of the focus of most conversation around them so far. But let's start with Anthony Edwards. So the Wolves' number 1 overall pick. Dylan, how have you felt about his development so far? I think we got a little bit of a hint at that during All Fired Up, but dive a little bit deeper for us.
Well, on the I was talking more about his personality off the court. On the court, I've also been enthused. There's a lot of skills that he is showing on a game-to-game basis. Last game, he had a couple of great kickouts to Naz Reid. He's able to drive. He's able to kick. He's able to shoot. He's a great athlete. He's showing versatility on defense. Right now, he's so raw that he's making a lot of dumb mistakes. I mean, DeMar DeRozan ate his lunch, and he had some really bad fouls. But in general, I like his skills, and I like his basketball IQ. It needs refining. He's 19. He's raw, and he's a little bit too much of a gunner right now. He takes a lot of bad shots. But his in-between game to the basket, his passing ability, he's showing everything that you could see out of a good player. It's just about developing those skills and, just getting practice. I mean, I think it's just basically game time for him.
So speaking on his propensity for bad shots at this point, do you think it'd be better for his development at this point to play in the starting unit next to Cat and D'Angelo, where he doesn't have to be a main offensive weapon, or do you still want him to come off the bench, maybe run with Rubio a little bit?
Rubio's looked like a bad fit for him, where there's just no spacing. So I think it'd probably be better for his development to play in the starting lineup where he has a little more spacing with Cat and D'Lo, and maybe that would develop some of his ancillary skills compared to the on ball, which he's shown like the most propensity for. So I think he's probably earned it too, where he's shown to be a good enough player to start next to those guys. I mean, Culver hasn't been great, Okogie hasn't been great, and he brings a lot of the same attributes that those guys do. So to me, I think it'd be great for him to get more minutes, and I think we need that for him to develop into a best player he can be for our franchise. So that's what I would suggest. And then maybe it reduce some of his gunning tendencies that he's shown so far.
Sure. Sam, what's your hot Edwards take?
How did you know it was going to be a hot take, JT?
Because you thought you were rethinking it during All Fired Up for Dylan.
Oh, that's true. Well, you're 100% correct. No, so I hear everything Dylan's saying, and I haven't, just being in Colorado, I haven't been able to watch him a whole lot as much as I would like. So it's hard for me to like really have like a strong opinion about him yet. So I'm kind of leaning on Dylan for that analysis. But to me, I said before the draft in our group text that the number 1 overall pick should have been LaMelo Ball for us. And this was coming from me completely objectively, because I actually really not like a huge fan of LaMelo Ball. Like, he kind of just rubs me the wrong way for whatever reason. But I still wanted us to take him because I thought he had the most like upside and talent. And I thought he would come in the league right away and stuff the stat sheet. That's why I picked him for Rookie of the Year. And I feel like more confident right now than I did even before the draft. Usually I only have opinion on like the top 3 players anyways, because I don't really I wait to see how they perform in the NBA, but kind of before I develop like a strong opinion about the player. But LaMelo, like, he's 6'7", he's only 180 pounds, and he's not even 20 years old yet, and he's come right into the league, and obviously he isn't the most efficient guy right now. We get that, but he's averaging like 13 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, coming off the bench and playing like 24 minutes a game. To me, he's had like a much stronger impact than Anthony Edwards has. And I agree with Dylan. I think the Wolves should play Edwards more minutes, just kind of get a better read on him. And there's no reason not to. Like, we're not going anywhere this year with or without Towns in the lineup. So I kind of stand by what I said earlier in the year. Obviously, I'm not going to come to any conclusions now because there's still a lot that needs to happen, and we'll probably won't know the answer until years down the road. But to me, he's kind of, just from an outside perspective, not being able to watch the games, seems a little one-dimensional, where he's just chucking up shots, scoring points, but he's not doing a whole lot else. And yeah, the athleticism and like his build is, I think, probably the most promising thing about him. I think that athleticism, that build is going to bode well for him on the defensive side. Like, he's going to be able to fight through screens. He's a tough player. He's going to be able to get in the lane, finish at the rim, things like that. So I'm not down on Edwards at all. I haven't really had a strong opinion because I haven't watched him much. So I don't hate the pick. Like, it would be LaMelo for me, and then I would probably go Edwards in that scenario. So it's not like I'm, oh my gosh, the T-Wolves made the worst decision ever. I just need to see more from Edwards, and right now I'm much higher on LaMelo as a player. And to Dylan's point earlier, and like the fired up take, how he brings like a personality to the Wolves that we haven't had, which I completely agree with. But I think LaMelo brings that same sort of like energy, and he gets like eyes to the TV. Like, I'm really interested in watching Charlotte this year. Like, they're a fun team, and I think LaMelo is a huge part of that. And he's just fun to watch. Like, the other game when he went up against Lonzo, that was like good TV. That was like fun when he stepped back and hit that 3 over Lonzo. Like, I'm all for that. So I think if we would have went that route, we would have had that same like charismatic presence that we would, so from that standpoint, it's not like a downgrade if we would have went LaMelo. And then I think on the court, he's just impressed me more than Anthony has so far this year.
Yeah, I've actually liked LaMelo Ball a lot. I didn't realize how high of an IQ he had. He's
extremely high.
Yeah, I mean, he knows when to pass.
Yep.
He knows how to get rebounds.
He knows where guys are. Yep.
Yeah, he knows how to score. I mean, he's a very intuitive player, and I didn't realize that. So if I would have I saw his highlights. I've watched him before, like before the draft, and he didn't seem like that type of player. He seemed like kind of more of a gunner and flair for the assist, and with the ball in his hands. But he's like a lot like Lonzo, where he's a connected piece too, where he's not necessarily a selfish player. So I agree with you. I still would probably lean Ant-Man, just because of his pedigree, his build. But LaMelo's been great too. I can't say anything about that.
And his like ability to, yeah, like you mentioned, like offensively, he's averaging like 4.5 threes a game. I mean, people thought that was a weakness of his game. He wouldn't be able to shoot the 3. He's not the most efficient scorer right now, but like I said, he's 6'7". He's like scrawny. He's like 180 pounds, and he's not even 20 years old yet. And he's just coming to the NBA, and he looks like he belongs. And to me, that's huge.
Wait, he's got to learn how to finish in the lane, and that might just be like a deficiency on his end just because of his build. But he's taking a lot of floaters, which is tough to be efficient with that. That's one thing that Ant-Man's been really great at, is he bodies people up, man. Like, he's a grown man. He's like a linebacker going in there, and he's been finishing very well.
And one thing I think that's both Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball have going for them is they don't lack confidence, and like that's huge for like a top pick. So
I love that.
So like I think that's like one of the biggest things. Like, you see guys like previous first overall picks, Anthony Bennett. Remember when we had him and he was on the Cavs? You could just see his confidence is drained like every game.
Or Wiggins.
Or Fultz. Yeah, Wiggins, Fultz.
Wiggins, yeah.
All these guys, they just had like a lack of confidence. I get the sense that like LaMelo and Anthony Edwards, they'll shoot like 0 for 20 and they'll keep shooting. And so I think that for young players is extremely important. So
yeah.
Yeah, you guys, Dylan, I think you mentioned kind of being surprised by what kind of player he was and the IQ that he plays with. But, I mean, we had almost no data on LaMelo Ball going into the draft. I mean, what, he played a handful of games in Australia and that was it. So I think it's just hard to really know what to expect from him coming out. And as far as Edwards goes, I think he's shown plenty of promise. I still think I don't love that shooting stroke, but I mean it's sort of that's a comparable thing between him and Ball too. They both got sort of funky strokes from deep, especially. But I want to see him in the starting lineup because I don't like him, and he's made comments about how much more difficult it is to be that guy in the offense right now, and how much more comfortable he is playing next to D'Lo and Cat, because he feels like he can just sort of find things naturally, and that's sort of how I want him to come along. I give him a ton of minutes, sure, but put him more often in that lineup and let him sort of learn how to find a good shot at some point, because I don't. It's kind of the route we took with Wiggins and Levine, where we were so awful their first year, and Flip just handed them both the ball and said, "Here you go, kids, have fun." I'm not really interested in doing that again. So.
No, if you just look at their lineups that he plays in when he's coming off the bench, I mean Rubio, Reed, either Culver or Jake Layman. I mean, there's all a bunch of non-shooters and guys who can't create. So then what happens, he's the main guy and he has to either create a shot or find a shot for a teammate, and I'm not sure if he's quite ready for that.
So, and I think it's a little bit unfair because I think it looks like his teammates are expecting him to carry the offensive load.
Yeah.
And to Anthony's credit, he's doing the best he can. I mean, he is hunting shots. He is trying to do that for the team, especially when we don't have our stars out there. It's just not a position I want him to be in right away.
Yeah, and I was really enthused, actually last night. He was making, plays for his teammates where he's getting the leg and kicking out and wide open 3-pointers. And I didn't think he had much of a passing mentality. And I'm not sure if he does, but at least he was making the right play
Sure.
last game. And so I'm hoping he evolves as the season goes on.
Yep. All right, let's move on to an even more polarizing player for the Wolves, and that's going to be D'Angelo Russell. So. And I think one of the reasons why D'Angelo is such a polarizing player for us is because there are such wildly different evaluations of what he is. Is he, that second star you need, or is he just an inefficient chucker? I think you'll find people that will passionately argue for either side of that line. One thing that has really stood out has been sort of his, and you can say it's a crude number if you want to, but his plus-minus numbers have been absolutely horrific. If you look at the average numbers, and granted a lot of this comes with Cat out of the lineup, but he has an average plus minus nearly 5 points worse than any other player on the Timberwolves roster, which at some point you have to look at that and think, we're getting outscored with you on the court more than any other player. What's going on? So how have you guys felt about D'Lo's play so far? Are you only interested in evaluating him next to Cat? And do you think we have any sort of chance of really going anywhere with him as one of our building blocks?
So for me, no, I don't think, to answer your last question, I don't think we're going anywhere with him. I don't think he's a winning player, and I don't think, and I said this before as we acquired him, he's always just been a high volume shooter. He's a poor defender. He's not very efficient. And so I've never really liked D'Angelo Russell. And then you put him on our team. I think it just highlights his flaws even more because we're a terrible defensive unit, and he just, like I said, he's just a high volume player. I'm not reading too much into plus minus or anything like that, just because our team overall is just not very good, and especially these first few weeks of the year we didn't have Cat and we got blown out in so many games. So that plus minus is going to be it's just going to be greater than what it would be if we had Cat in the lineup during that time. But even so, he's the same player he was in Brooklyn, same player he was last year in Golden State. He's going to chuck up a bunch of shots a game. He'll average around 20 points. He'll play poor defense. He'll just be a high volume, inefficient player, and I don't think that's a recipe for a winning team. Especially with the roster that we have constructed around him. I get acquiring him because you try to get talent when you can get it, and he is still a talent. There's no question about that. It's just the type of talent he is. I don't think it translates to winning, and so I've never been in on D'Angelo Russell. I'm really down on the T-Wolves overall right now, especially with the start of the season that we had. It highlights the guys that we have around. I guess Cat right now, and that are just there's not a lot going for us. So I don't know where we go from here. It'll be interesting to hear if Dylan's got any thoughts on that. But I'm out on D'Lo for now. I never been in on him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you say Jamal Crawford or D'Angelo Russell? I don't know the difference right now.
Crawford's a poor man's Russell.
Yeah, it might be the other way around, honestly, by then. But no, yeah. So it's just like his deficiencies, like you highlighted, Sam. He doesn't get to the line. He's shooting 3.2 free throws a game. He's only taking 5% of his shots in a restricted area. That's not a recipe for efficient offense in any manner, And beyond that, like all his shots are contested. There's a lot of mid-range, a lot of contested shots. So he's actually a decent shot maker, but when you're taking those inefficient shots with hands in the face and not getting to the free throw line, you're never going to be a great player. That you're looking at more of a 6-man role compared to a max guy. So when JT, you said, can we evaluate without Cat? It's like we have to. I mean, he's a max player. I mean, you should be able to not get blown out by 20 every game if you have a max player still playing on your team. And a bit beyond that, he's just not very good on defense. And the biggest issue is he's 6'5". So in theory, he could switch on to other wings or shooting guards, but he's not strong enough to do that. And then he can't stay in front of point guards. So like, what does he really do? So to me, I don't see what he's gonna turn into, and like what the T-Wolves are gonna be able to do with him as a max player on our team. So I agree with you, Sam. It's tough to know where to go from there. I mean, in my opinion, you gotta build around Cat and Ant-Man, and then see if what you can get from role players. But I don't know. He's been pretty dang bad this year.
And one other thing, what kind of worries me is, like you said, Dylan, build around Cat and Ant-Man, who we got on the team right now. Mm-hmm. But we have a lot of like other young guys like that could serve as like role players as well. Yeah. Because D'Angelo dominates the ball so much, could be stunting the growth of some of these like younger players. So like allowing them to be more playmakers and get the ball in their hands and less out of D'Angelo, because we're not going anywhere with them, in my opinion. I just worry that it might be like stunting the growth of some of these young guys. So I think that's another area where I would be a little bit concerned.
Well, yeah, and that's I should have mentioned that. That's a good point, where his biggest value is having the ball in his hands.
Yeah, for sure.
And then he's not very valuable when he has the ball in his hands. Yeah. So that's the rub right there. Is I think he could, there's good parts to his game. Like he can make tough shots at the end of the clocks, which has been great for us at the end of games. He's actually a pretty intuitive player on the defensive end, getting into passing lanes. But when he is the main focus on offense, and then defense, we're asking him to play a part. It just hasn't been a recipe for success. And maybe I'm too down on him, but I'm not excited about it at all.
Well, I think I agree for the most part. I don't like a lot of the decisions he's making on offense. It just seems like he's forcing, like you said, a lot of contested shots. It's just not efficient offense, and we just don't seem to be clicking when he is sort of helming the offense in general. But really, what's really stood out to me in what I've watched with him this year is how confused he tends to look a lot of times. He makes like a lot of mistakes that just seem to be rooted in like miscommunication. Which brings us to kind of our third topic on the Wolves. Is that something you'd put on Ryan Saunders? And that's Ryan has had, obviously a feel-good story after Flip's passing and him sort of taking the reins of the Wolves. A lot of people wondered if he was really qualified for the job at the time. Do you guys think that he has done enough to prove that he should continue coaching this team? Do you think he should be the coach of this team going forward? Sam, what do you think?
So, in my opinion, I'll lean a little more on Dylan's because he's watching the games right now, and that helps, obviously. Like, I haven't been able to watch many of the games, but from my outside opinion, I think he's done, like, a terrible job. Like, we don't know what lineup we're going to get from time to time, and I don't think he knows either. I think he's just completely winging it, and he's throwing guys out there. And maybe that's all right because we can't win a game, but at some point, maybe that's the reason we can't win a game because he doesn't know, like, what lineups he's putting out there and what he's doing. It just seems like every day he's just trying something new and hoping it works. And again, I get that we have a lack of talent, and Towns has been out and all that good stuff. So that certainly factors into the variability in the lineups that he's setting. But still, I'm like, it's a feel good story that we brought him in, but I don't know how great of a coach he is. Like, and from what I've seen from him over these last couple of years, been completely underwhelmed. And I think we'd probably be best served with some of the young guys heading in a different direction. And then just on top of that too, like, I don't know how much of it is Rosas not wanting to let him go just because of the whole Flip Saunders thing. And it was a feel good story, but at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for the organization. And right now it's too early, and I haven't watched many of the T-Wolves games again, which I mentioned like 8 times. Then I think that as of like right now, I would say we probably need to head in a different direction, but I would obviously give them this year because we're not going to go anywhere this year anyways.
Yeah, for me, it's hard to tell if it's a team philosophy coming down from Rosas, or if it's Ashley Saunders' what he wants to do, because immediately once Saunders was put in place and Rosas was put into place, we started jacking threes like we're the Rockets, and we were playing different lineups where we only have one big 4 out, and honestly our team is not really set up to do that. And beyond that, we have part of the rotations things. I'm just wondering if we're going to analytic like based lineups instead of what makes sense. Just that's what the Rockets did a lot, and that's what seems to be happening with us. Because like, can anybody explain to me why Jake Layman plays ever?
Well, because the alternative's Juancho.
But is he a 4?
Yeah.
What? He's like my size.
Layman's 6'8".
No, he's not.
Yeah,
There's no way he's 6'8".
Yeah,
What is he like? I probably weigh more than him. He's so bad. I'm sorry. There's no reason. He's been starting. He's stopped
6'8".
starting. Well, he's bad. He's awful. So I'm not sure if that's like a Saunders thing or if it's like an analytic thing. But so I'll highlight some good things that I've liked from Saunders. Like, our team plays hard for him. I like that. I like that. Even though I said that it might not make sense for a team, at least we're playing a certain style on defense and offense. But the things that are bad is too many players are playing. I think there's still too many 3-pointers. He's playing guys that just don't really make sense. And then it's hard. He's not developing our young guys and giving them minutes when they need to give those guys minutes. So it's hard to say because our team is bad and it doesn't have a lot of players. And Cat's missed a ton of games the last 2 years. But we shouldn't be getting blown up by 20 every single game with Cat out of the lineup. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, so there was a tweet I had seen a couple of weeks ago from, I don't know if it was Canis Hoopus or Punch Drunk Wolves, one of those kind of Wolves blog Twitter accounts, which are great, by the way.
Yeah.
But they had said during one of those games, I think it was actually during the Memphis preseason game, that the Grizzlies have way more plays than us, and they all work. And to me, like, that in combination with what you said about Saunders, which has been a positive in that these guys are playing hard, is sort of a reflection of what he is as a coach. He came in with a reputation as a player's coach, and with some questions about really his head coaching acumen, I guess, or qualifications, which is he's been a great motivator. These guys are playing for him, and yet it seems like nobody really knows what they're doing, which I think has been sort of the most frustrating thing for me watching, I guess, as a fan. But
yeah, and it's tough to tell too, as we're the youngest team in the league. But you're right. I mean, you can see when a team knows what they're doing and a team that doesn't know what they're doing. Yeah. And our team is constantly like making bad rotations. They're dropping on guys they shouldn't drop on. They're doing switches when they shouldn't switch. And then on offense, they're not necessarily they're spacing the floor correctly, but they're not attacking when they're supposed to attack on the right matchups. And there's just a lot of miscommunications and just poor basketball being played.
And I should say, one thing that Sam said bothers him does not bother me at all, and that's the randomness of the rotations, just because we haven't really found much that's worked. And to me, mixing and matching at this point of the season, especially with how the early games have gone, doesn't bother me at all. I don't know. At some point, I know you need continuity and you need some sort of stability in your rotation. But there have been so many guys playing that rotation, especially our bigs. Davis has been bad. Layman's been bad. Aaron Gomez has been bad. That you gotta try something. And I think honestly, it just sort of feels like Saunders is just throwing darts at the wall and trying to see if something sticks. So.
Can I? I think we beat that one to death. So can I I know we need to move along. Can I quick sneak one more disappointing player in here that I didn't get to mention earlier?
Sure.
And I think Dylan would absolutely agree with me. Kyle Kuzma. He has got to go. I can't stand Kyle Kuzma as a Laker fan. I just had to throw that into this podcast because, God, I hate him so much.
Thanks for your contribution.
I hate using the word hate. Let me take that back. I dislike him very much as a player within that team. He was
we saved that
for AD the other day. He was so bad.
We saved that clip so when he makes a win shot in the finals, we're not play that. I agree with you, Sam. Yeah, he hasn't been that great.
So bad.
All right, let's move on. Last thing we have to cover basketball-wise are some open questions we have around the rest of the league. We've kind of covered our reactions to the early season, and we've dove deep on the Timberwolves. But what question do you have going forward for a team or a player? Sam, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'm going to pose one question to the both of you. It's, can Giannis win a championship? And Dylan, I'll get your take first. JT, I want to hear from you as well. But and then I'll tell you why I chose this question. But I'm also debating. You can I was mostly talking about, like, can he win it any time during his career? But if you want to just answer it this year, that's fine with me. So what do you think, Dylan?
So as the best player?
As the best player. Good point, because obviously there's a scenario where everyone can win a championship. If you put Cat with AD and LeBron, they're going to win Cat's going to win a championship. But I'm saying as like the best player, or like the co-best player, if you will.
Yeah, I think he can. Short answer.
Okay. How about this year?
This year, yeah, I think they can. I think they have. I just think between being probably the best defender in the league, being the most physical dominant force in the NBA, I think that he gives a team to win, a chance to win every single night. I know where you're coming from with the ability to, in like crunch time or with defenses focused against him, not be able to adapt, and then also not being able to shoot. I mean, those are huge things that he has to answer. But if we're talking about a full 48 minutes, he's the most physically dominant player in the league, and that gives his team a chance to win every single night. And he's so.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so I do think that he needs to adapt his game or get a player that sits next to him that can, maybe take those last shots at the end of games. But if we're talking about the best player, yeah, I think he can. I think they can win this year. It may come down to Middleton taking a shot at the end of the game, or Drew Holiday, but I think they can.
JT, what do you think?
I definitely think he can. I don't think he will this year, and I'm not being super analytical about that. I just, I've got visions of last year's postseason in my head, and I feel like I need to see them, and him in particular, prove that it works in the postseason. That, yeah, when it does come to crunch time, that he can at least facilitate effectively and make winning plays at the end of games in big scenarios like that. But like Dylan said, most physically, unbelievably freakish athlete and player in the league, 2-time MVP. Yeah, he can win a championship. Part of me just needs to see at least some sign of life before I wholeheartedly believe that, I guess, at least in the short term.
Oh, Sam, one more thing before you answer it, too. I think part of it has been like the adaptability of Bud as coach, too, because, the same thing kind of happened to LeBron early in his career, especially in the playoffs, Then he got into the post. He started doing pick and roll, as a screener instead of just the ball handler. They did more pick and rolls with LeBron, and last year they were still doing the same thing in the playoffs when it wasn't working. They were doing a 5-out, 2 guys in the corners, 2 guys in the corner or in the wings, and having Giannis just drive every single time. Let's see if they can have Drew being the ball handler, him setting a pick and rolling to the rim. Let's see if he can have Middleton set a pick for him and do a switch, get in the post. I see what you're saying, and I think you're going to say, but I just think that there hasn't been enough done for the team to adapt for us to say that, hey, he can't be that player.
Dylan's already countering my point that I haven't made yet.
Yeah.
But all right, so first of all, I want to preface this by saying I love Giannis. I don't want to. You guys put me in. I make one
neighbor.
comment.
Neighbor.
I was gonna say my former neighbor. I got a lot of love for him, but you guys put me in these I make one comment about a guy, and all of a sudden it turns into this narrative where I absolutely hate him, and I don't like anything about the guy. Love Giannis, think he's a great player, one of the top 4 players in the game. Sometimes top 3, whatever. But to me, the answer is right now, no, and I really have doubts that he ever will be able to win a championship, and. Yeah, so it comes down to, Dylan, you said, he can dominate a game for 48 minutes throughout the regular season. That's why the last few years they've been the number 1 seed. But when it comes down to the playoffs and you're playing against the best of the best in the Eastern Conference Finals, last year was even before the Eastern Conference Finals, and then if you were even to get to the finals, the competition's obviously going to be much different and the margin for error much less. And I think that's what is going to separate him from some of the other guys. I think, Dylan, you mentioned LeBron as well. And LeBron kind of early in his career was this type of player. He's obviously better than what Giannis was at this point. But there's definitely parts of LeBron's game that he had to grow in order to be a champion. He saw the way the game was headed. He knew he had to adapt to hit the 3 ball. Even before that, he had to develop a post game. If you remember in Miami, he really worked in the offseason on his post game, and he came back almost like a 4 the next year. He was always in the post making those plays. It didn't last long because he saw the way the game was headed, understood he had to hit more threes, and then all of a sudden we saw him shoot more threes, and now he's one of the he's a good 3-point shooter, and that's obviously, when he was playing against Golden State, that was needed because they were 3-point snipers over there. So for me, that's ultimately what I think it's going to come down to. And I actually came up with this question in the first game of the season when they were playing Boston. It came down to the wire. It was 122, 121, if you remember. Giannis was at the free throw line with 1 shot to bring it into overtime, and he missed it. And I think that obviously that's just one little small instance of what the greater problem is. But I don't know if it's his length or if it's his build or if it's maybe just his hand size or what. But I don't think we're ever going to see him develop a shot, a consistent 3-point shot. I don't think we're ever, and we've gone back and forth on this before, Dylan, but I don't think we're ever going to see a mid-range shot from Giannis, at least a consistent one, and we're never going to see an in-between shot from Giannis. And again, I don't know if it's just his length, his build, what it is, but I don't think he's got the touch to do that. I don't think he's got I mean, we see him now, he gets left open, wide open from 3. Yeah, he can hit a few, but it's not consistent enough to, really cause any issues for the defense. His game is at the rim, or it's pretty much just at the rim. And obviously he's a tremendous defender, one of the best in the league. But for me, the fact that he can't develop a jump shot when the margin of error is so small against the best teams in the league in the Eastern Conference Finals, which I don't think he should have any problem getting to because the competition's a lot less stiff until he gets there. So he's great enough to get him to that point. But when you're going up against guys like KD, guys like LeBron, guys like even Jimmy Butler last year, guys like Kawhi 2 years ago when they stopped him in the Eastern Conference Finals, it's just a trend at this point. We've seen 4 years now of him and the same issues. I get that he's added Middleton and Drew Holiday. I'm not confident enough in them to handle Drew Holiday. Yeah, he's a nice player. He hasn't really done anything in his career. I don't trust him late either. Definitely an upgrade of what Bledsoe and what they had last year. But if it comes down to Giannis at the end of games where he has to make plays, I think he's completely marginalized as a player in that sense. And I think it would take almost like pairing up with like a Curry and Clay for him to win a championship as of right now. Because I don't see him developing a mid-range game. I don't see him developing an in-between game. And if he can't get that, they're going to continue stacking the lane on him, and you're going to ask Middleton to try to win games for you in the biggest moments. And I'm not confident that that will happen. So they're still in my contenders with all that being said, but they're like a lot less than what I would have like the Clippers and the Lakers and those teams. So that's kind of why I posed the question in my spiel on Giannis. Right, I love the guy, but I'm concerned.
We gotta move on. If any of our viewers have an answer for it, can Giannis win a championship? You can let us know in the chat too. Dylan, what's your open question to the rest of the league?
So is our 3-pointers evening the playing field for the NBA in the regular season and the postseason?
Well, so I'll start with that one. I think to a degree it is, but only because it sort of aligns with the analytical movement of the NBA in general the last couple of years. And I think it only levels the playing field. It scales with the personnel as well, right? So it hasn't exactly done that for the Wolves. They're trying to play that way, that these analytically driven teams like the Warriors and the Rockets are playing. But when you don't have the shooters, when you don't have the personnel, it doesn't work. You might get hot in a game or two, and you might take a game that nobody expected you to. So from that point of view, it can level the playing field on any given night for sure. But I think, as far as a whole season is considered, as far as, 72, 82 games, whatever it is, I think, talent still wins out in that case.
Yeah, and for me, I kind of agree with JT and what he said, where it's kind of like an overall movement that the league is headed. And there have been a lot of blowouts this year. I've noticed that just from like the first couple of weeks more than usual. So I think there's definitely merit to this question. I haven't really dove into the numbers, and it's such a small sample size at this point, only 2 weeks, to draw any like conclusions. But I definitely think there's merit to it. But you probably dove into the numbers a little deeper, so I'm excited or interested to see what you have, Dylan.
Yeah, so that's what my question was. The reason I asked that was I was wondering why. One, the league is so stacked up in the standings right now. Two, why there's so many blowouts. So I kind of hypothesized that it was like the 3-point shooting. I think there's a lot of different factors to it, but that's the one I dove into. And this is kind of what I found. So there's been a upward trend in 3-pointers as a percentage of shots per game with each team. So about 5 years ago, it was 31.7% of the shots. 3 years ago, it was 36. Last year was 38.4, and this year is almost 40% of all shots taken are 3-pointers. Coupled that with the possessions, it's actually gone up almost 10 possessions per game. Like in a game, went from 91 possessions per game to 101. So not only are there more possessions, but more of those possessions are 3-pointers. So that's increased the variability on a game-to-game basis from what I've seen. And just a couple like figures that I found super interesting. So Milwaukee and their 6 wins, they've made 19.3 3-pointers per game, and their losses 12.5. Golden State in wins 17.6 and losses 8.8. So to me, it's becoming more of a. I mean, it's always been a make or miss league, but now it's becoming more of a make 3-pointer, a miss 3-pointer league, where if you have a good shooting night, you're gonna win. And to me, that's just interesting. By the way, I did think about a couple other things of why, especially this year, seems to be more blowouts. And 3-pointers are up. There's not as much of a home court advantage. There's condensed schedule, short layoff, and there's been more rest and COVID injuries. So I just think that's created more variability in game-to-game basis, and that's why we're seeing more odd outcomes. Why the Knicks beat the Bucks by 20 points in a random game, which doesn't happen very often. And just one more stat to come at you guys with: 25% of the games in the first 2 weeks have been teams that lost by over 20 points. So that's almost twice as much as the average of the last decade. So it's not just we think we're seeing more blowouts, it's actually happening. And I think a lot of that is coming down to pace and 3-point percentage on a team level.
So I think you're right. I think, those blowouts, they can tend to feel more random because of that 3-point shooting. But I think you also hit on it too with the COVID stuff. With this being sort of like the shortest off season in like the history of like any of the 4 major American sports, just so much less preparation time, so much less time for these kind of teams to find their footing as groups. I think that's where some of that variability is coming from too.
Oh, and by the way, I think it definitely when it gets into the high profile games, I don't think that matters as much because there's between game planning, between 7-game series, I think it comes down more to the talent and like the high end talent in particular. So I think this is more a regular season trend, not a postseason trend, but I guess we'll see once postseason happens.
Sure. All right, and I got one question for you guys too, and I don't think Dylan agrees with it at all. But my question for the rest of the league, or I guess for home too, is Cat's legacy in Minnesota going to end up being injuries and what could have been if he had really been healthy during his tenure here?
And so I think what his legacy will be similar to K-Love's. I think ultimately I'm not too concerned about the injuries because it's hard to obviously predict injuries, but his haven't really been consistent with one another, as in it's like a trend, right? They're kind of like completely random, right?
Risks, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, to me, I think it kind of lends to the how soft he is, like what I always say, kind of joking. But anyways, I think his legacy will be more of like K-Love. He will be here, he'll put up big numbers, we won't win, and then he'll leave. And I like, as much as that sucks to say, I think that's ultimately what his legacy will be, like here. And then it depends on where he goes, obviously, what his like lasting legacy will be. But for me, I'm not too concerned about the injuries. Like if it was like a knee and it kept bothering year after year, that's when I'd be more concerned about injuries being his legacy. But when they're kind of like more random, I think he just needs to he's only out for like a week this time. Like he gets banged up here and there. Maybe he has to toughen up a little bit. I don't know. He said he was going to this year. He was going to be tougher because of what he'd gone through this offseason. So I don't know if we will see like a more resilient and tougher Towns, which would be great, especially on the defensive side. But for me, K-Love comes to mind. DeMarcus Cousins comes to mind. Guys like that will be, I think, like precursors of what we will see from Towns. So I think ultimately he's going to leave, go somewhere else, and he's not going to do a lot of winning here in Minnesota.
Hey, JT, can I clarify your question? Are you saying Cat or like other guys on the team with injuries?
Specifically Cat. I don't really figure anybody else on this team right now having a lasting legacy with the Wolves other than him.
Well, the only reason I asked because he's played 82, 82, 82, 77, and then last year was 35. So that's like, 4 of the 5 years he's played.
Yeah, so the first few years, yeah, he was incredibly durable, and so were Wiggins, during that time too. Those guys were on the floor like every single game. The thing that's just starting to worry me, and I guess it's maybe more forward looking than it should be, but it's just now, that we have Russell in the fold. Towns is on his extension, and it just feels like there's this clock that's ticking. And every single game, where he's banged up, where he's out of the lineup, it just feels like more and more missed opportunities. I mean, you could say that with the way the Western Conference is right now, that 5-game spell there, him being out of the lineup, or 7-game spell, 6-game spell, that probably sank any chances we had in the playoffs at all. There's just so little margin for error, and with kind of where we're sitting right now and the personnel that we have, we can't really afford for him to be anything less than in the lineup for nearly 80 games a year.
Yeah, so that's where I kind of land, where it's more of an indictment on our team than the injury. I mean, I went through like the 6 games. We lost by 120 points in 6 games. So we lost by 20 points a game, you know? So I would say that's more of an indictment like on our team. So like it's crazy that we need Cat in the lineup to like even compete, even not lose by 20 points. So I would say that's more team building and like a coaching than, you know, bring it back on injuries at Cat, because again, I mean, it was 6 games. Like you should be able to withstand 6 games out from your best guy. I mean, I don't know if there's any guys in the league that don't take at least 6 games out, you know, throughout the year.
And okay, the 6-game absence is one thing, but he said yesterday that he was told he had a 6 to 8 week timeline before he just had F it and played yesterday. So I'm not necessarily questioning his toughness, but also you know, if he's not 100% playing for that degree, and also that happened last year too, where he rushed back from a wrist injury and they shut him down after that. And maybe that was more so like a tanking effort or whatever for the 15th straight year, but it's just it's starting to irk me more and more.
Yeah, I think last year we were already out of it, so I think they just let him come back on his own time.
Sure.
This year, if you watch a game, like his wrist is like pretty hurt. Like every time he's like going up to the basket, he's getting hit and he's like grimacing. It's kind of tough, but we also need him in the game to see what we have and also to even compete on any type of level. I mean, again, I'll go back to it one more time. 120 points in the 6 losses that he was out, and then in the 3 games he played, we're plus 12. You know, and obviously those are like crude numbers, but I think it's more a team building thing than you know.
Well, I think that's definitely a fair assessment too. That at the end of the day, even if he does end up missing large amounts of games in whatever stretches, I think you're right. It is also an extreme indictment on the rest of the roster that we've built at this point. So.
Yeah, it's been embarrassing. Like I can't even watch them without Cat. The team is so bad, and it's not fun to watch.
Yep. All right. Well, that wraps up the open questions we had going forward, and that really wraps up the basketball content that we had today too. So the only thing we have left to do before we wrap up this episode is kind of talk about what we got going on personally until next time, which should be in a couple of weeks. We hope we're getting back on a more even schedule here post baby for me. So so we'll see if we can do that. But what have you guys got going on, whether it be, you know, TV shows you're watching, movies you got coming up, music you're listening to? I think, Dylan, you wanted to highlight your song of the week. Is that still your plan here?
Yeah, in general, I just wanted to talk about one particular artist.
Okay.
If I'm able to do that.
Go for it.
God.
So I would like to say, now and forever, this is a Young Thug podcast. I am the #1 fan in America, and since I'm on this podcast, we're a Young Thug podcast. I would like to say that first and foremost.
It has been so declared. All right.
Nope. Sorry, Sam, you're in. So there's 3 things I love more than anything in life, and other than family and girlfriends, all that stuff,
Plural?
Girlfriend, met girl. Shout out. So I'll go through the 3 things. 1, LeBron, as you can see by my T-shirt. 2, the NBA, and 3 is Young Thug. I just want to let everybody know to go listen to Young Thug right now. If you want a place to start, I would go to the song "Lifestyle" by Rich Gang. It's Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan, and it's a beautiful melody that will brighten everybody's day. And I would just like to shout out Young Thug, and I would like for everybody to go listen to him as much and as often as you can.
Okay, well, free advertising. Thanks, Dylan. Sam, what do you got going on?
One thing I don't got going on is I won't be listening to any Young Thug.
Come on.
You can count on that. Now I'm just going to be watching football today, guys. Playoffs, pretty fired up about them. That was my opening rant. Like, I'm super excited about the playoffs. I wanted to get your guys' quick picks as we go through each game. So 3 games today. First one, Ravens Titans. Who you guys got? I'm gonna take. Well, so this one, we're already playing, so I should probably say the Titans are up 10-3 right now. But,
give me the Titans.
Wow. I'm gonna go Ravens still. What do you got, Dylan?
I want the Ravens. I'm a big Lamar Jackson guy. Like, I just want to have happy things for Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying you might not like him, but I just like him as a person, and I want good things for him.
Okay. Well, I mean, I did pick them, so I'm rooting for him today, I guess. Bears, Saints. Who do you guys got? I think I'm going Saints for sure.
Saints.
Bears.
JT, Bears.
Yeah,
Wow.
big. I'm a
All right.
big Mitch fan. I think he's gonna come through for him.
Trubisky Holic.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Steelers, Browns. I'm going Steelers. What do you guys got?
I'm going Browns. I think. I don't know. Steelers have been kind of hemorrhaging lately.
I think I'll go Browns too.
That's kind of a toss-up.
No, their head coach has to call from his living room or something, doesn't he?
Hey, what COVID? I know the Browns had some COVID issues. Is that what happened?
No one really.
Okay.
Other than their head coach.
Is Kamara's playing too?
Kamara's playing. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I feel good about both.
Head coaches don't make that much of a difference. So.
Yeah, not at all. So I'll be watching football today, guys. That's my big thing. Hopefully, can win a little bit of money, but we'll see.
All right, yeah, and me, I'm just making my way through some TV shows right now. So I think the last one, the one I just got through was Dark. I don't know if you guys have watched that on Netflix, German show.
No.
So if you're going to watch it, just watch the first season because like after that, like the second season was like okay, and the third season was just kind of a complete waste of time. So first season's amazing though. Like if you want to check that out. And then we just started the second season of Jack Ryan too, so making our way through that. But and I heard that wasn't as good as the first season, but so far it's been pretty decent. So.
What is Colin's favorite show?
She likes Rugrats.
Oh, nice.
I actually did put that
Classic.
on for her one day, and it was actually tough to get through an episode. It's just it's a lot of high-pitched babies talking.
I have fond memories from that.
Oh, I do too, but it was through the lens of a 28-year-old. It was less enjoyable.
I don't know. I think it'd be kind of nostalgic.
Hey, JT, is the Jack Reacher, is that the one with like John, the office guy?
Well, I think Reacher's a separate thing. Jack Ryan is the one with John.
Oh, Ryan.
Krasinski. Yeah.
Ryan. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Jack Reacher's the one with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's with John.
Yeah. Okay. Is that good?
First season's fantastic. Like I said, I'd heard sort of mixed reviews on the second season, but we're 3 episodes in, and I'm into it so far. So.
I just don't really see him as like a serious like actor, like in an action movie.
It took me a while to like see him as anything other than Jimmy, but after like watching him in what was it, Silent Place?
Oh,
Quiet Place.
Quiet Place. I love that movie. That was a good movie.
Yeah,
he was good at that.
After Jack Ryan in A Quiet Place, I'm digging him. So.
I like the beard. The beard adds a little bit,
Yeah,
not so
kind
boyish.
of a rugged manliness now.
Kind of hot.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, that wraps up kind of what we got going on, and we'll find you guys back here for our next stream, hopefully in a couple of weeks. Until then, go ahead and like and subscribe, as they say here on YouTube, and we'll catch you guys next time.